Water. Thank you very much for coming. Our program will begin with the lighting of the chalice. Deke. Rick's faith has always been that of a Unitarian Universalist. His faith is guided by 7 principles. The first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Second, justice, equity, and compassion for human relations. Third, acceptance of one another and encouragement in spiritual growth in our own congregations. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of a democratic process within our congregations and society at large. The 6th, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. The 7th and last principle of the Unitarian Universalist principles is respect for the independent web of all existence which we are part. I am sure that you will hear these principles woven into the stories you are about to hear. Sir?
Thank you all for coming, and some people came so very far away. It's wonderful to see all these familiar faces. I am so grateful for 33 years of a wonderful marriage to a very fine fellow. Rick was loving and kind and loving as a father and as a husband. And as you have noticed, I'm sure Rick he was smart. and he was witty. Now, he couldn't tell a joke, but he didn't need to know how to tell a joke because his wit came natural. Toward the end of his life, he did learn one joke about the bagpiper and the grave diggers, and he told that one well. Otherwise, he was witty. So when Rick spoke, I always listened. Well, no, I usually listened. Because it was probably going to be important or interesting or humorous. And we were fortunate because we worked together and we shared so much together, but we also enjoyed our free interests together. One weekend we got this book on all the layers of rocks going up to Dead Indian and down the other side, and so we drove up and we camped and we collected a big specimen from every single stratigraphic layer, and we brought them home and laid them out in the flower bed around the house. It's a blessing to have interests in common like that with your spouse. The last thing Rick said was, to all of us, he said, "Tell everyone good night."
Cody?
My dad had a profound influence on me. Despite the enormous time constraints that come along with being a farmer and being an entrepreneur, he was still highly involved in my life. An example of this was the dinner conversations we'd have every night. There'd be these lucid discussions of news, economics, science, politics, things that I wasn't necessarily very interested in, but they kept on talking about every single night. And I haven't confirmed this with my mom, but I think this was an intentional ploy on their part to try to make my brother and I better citizens of our world here. He was also pretty active in taking us out into expeditions into nature, whether we wanted to or not. So some of these were amazing trips, like Castle Gardens, or we went out to Arizona, beautiful places. And then there were the unwanted excursions, like throwing me naked into a snow blink outside the sliding glass door at our house. Yeah, that wasn't nearly as much fun. He was also highly involved in my academic pursuits. Engineering and academic projects, we built sleds and these dioramas, and we built forts out of balsa wood, and these recreations of historic World War II battlefields out of the ceiling tiles that we had laying around. He was pretty industrious, and it was neat to work with him on these projects and get excited by them. And he was, like my mom said, he was smart, but he also provided a much needed voice of reason for all the projects I tried to get started. I remember I tried to, I think it was in high school when I was in Boy Scouts, I wanted to weld armor plating to my station wagon and mount a paintball turret on it. So he was always the reason for that, as well as some of the things I wanted to do, like create a nightclub here in Orland for the high schoolers in an old Ron's Food Farm, I think it was, over by the bowling alley. But he applied his mind as well to his dreams. He really wanted to create a new industry, create an important business here, and he followed this dream to the branding market. And he wasn't afraid to invest the manual effort required to get it off the ground. I know he missed he didn't miss anything, but he had so much time invested in going and working on these projects, and some of them ended in disaster. But he was able to come back, put on a cheerful face, and go out again the next day. And one of the best experiences I ever had was working side by side with him on the farm. I was a farmhand for a summer. And we were just out there in the field, talking and doing manual labor. It was quite a beautiful experience. I only wish he could be there for the next chapters in my life. Fortunately, we had quite a bit of warning that he was going to pass. So we were able to come up here and visit and spend his last days with him. This last summer, I attended a wedding in Maryland, and it struck me that my dad wasn't going to be there for mine. And I just broke down in tears in the middle of the ceremony, had to go outside and just called him and talked with him, told him how much I loved him. He won't get to see my future children. But fortunately, I do kind of have one already with my girlfriend Kim. She has a son that I'm sort of in the process of adopting. And he did get to meet Remy. Took him out fossil hunting, exploring the outdoors. And he gave him this pouch full of minerals and gems and fossils that he could take with him to remember and buy. Remy never wanted to leave. He found Wyoming to be this awesome, beautiful place where he could just play in the mud outside naked and go find fossils anywhere he wanted to. So when it came time to leave, that last trip, he threw a tantrum. He didn't want to go. He just wanted to stay here forever. And we didn't quite know what to do in the moment, but Rick didn't skip a beat. He just got down on his hands and knees and started pounding the floor and wailing and threw in his own tantrum. Oh, it's not fair! He can't go, he has to stay here forever, I don't want him to leave! And so either the terror or the confusion of this event got Remy to stop crying, and he just beelined it for the car. So that's going to be one of my fondest memories of my father, especially in recent years. But now he's gone. I've lost the most influential person probably I've ever going to have in my life. But his dedication to our family will forever shape me and those who come after me. I'm sure he has impacted each of you in one way or another. Many of you chose to share stories of his life, which you can peruse in the display I created over there in the corner. And you can also follow the link in your program if you want to explore it on your own when you're at home with your computer. But I'm forever grateful to all of you for coming to help remember and celebrate such a remarkable life.
You'll have to use your own notes.
All right. Well, Dad passed away about close to 3 months ago, and I had to start using this thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called Google. I've never had to use it before. If I ever had a question, I just call Dad. If I ask Google, let's say about like the emerging modern capitalistic economy in pre-industrial Great Britain, Google would give me a list of useful names and dates, and I guess that's helpful, ish. I never used the whole Google thing because, like I said, all I'd do is call Dad, and I'd ask him the same question, and instead of getting a list of dates, he would provide me said names and dates, and then he would give me a nuanced history lesson about the political and economic conditions leading up to the said event. An hour would pass, and at that point we would have an intimate detail about the economic philosophy of the wealth of nations. We'd argue John Locke's social contract, and then we'd delve into the Dutch tulip bubble and subsequent crash that would have reverberating and lasting effects on world economics for centuries to come. That was Dad. If you ask Google about the history of the Earth, it would list off the Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic. Dad would give you a multi-million-year history lesson on the Bighorn Basin and how plate tectonics, and the rising sea levels created where we live today, where we all call home. I mean, that was just how he operated. I have never and will probably never meet another person like him, and he had such a voracious desire for information and knowledge. He looked at the world and he could just see how everything fit together. Whatever the subject was, be it geology, anthropology, cosmology, biology, paleontology, history, music theory, epistemology, spirituality. He had a genuinely insightful vision on pretty much every subject he discussed. He was a true, without a doubt, Renaissance man. I am who I am today because of a direct result of my dad. He educated me on much more than just our physical world and history. He taught me how to be gracious in winning and losing. He taught me to be respectful of other people's opinions, no matter how much I disagree with them, and how to discuss those opinions in a thoughtful manner. He taught me how to think critically, to question conventional wisdom, and to lead my life and let it be driven by reason. He taught me not to take life too seriously because, as he proved, no one gets out alive. And he also taught me about the importance of life. There were moments when I was younger where I would have a crisis of a certain existential nature. I mean, what is the point of life when we are one of 6 billion people on a little rock, in a little solar system, in a little galaxy, in a universe that's made up of hundreds of millions of galaxies? I mean, hell, this might not even be the only universe. These were the philosophical questions that would trouble me and keep me up at night, and they plagued my mind for quite some time. It wasn't until Dad and I discussed just how unique human existence is in this universe, and how every single person on this planet is contributing on a micro level to this extraordinary and beautiful experiment that we call life. This is our legacy as individuals, and if we die having perpetuated even the semblance of reason, thoughtfulness, compassion, and joy in this great experiment of ours, then our life's mission should be considered complete. Towards the end, Dad taught me how to live with grace in front of insurmountable odds. Even after being told he had a mere 2 weeks left on this, to live on this earth, he still found the courage to brighten other people's day. When it was me, whether it be making wisecracks about Tom Selleck's mustache to a superfan or poking fun at his own mortality, Dad always found a way to look at the lighter side of life. Leukemia and lymphoma was never going to strip him of who he worked so hard to become. It was never going to rob him of his humanity. Nothing was going to stop him from accomplishing his life's mission, a mission Dad completed with flying colors. As I stand here delivering these words in the Washington Museum, standing on ground that my dad hopefully helped to build, I feel truly humbled to be able to call Richard Anthony Dunne my father. Regardless of what I accomplish over the coming years, even if I somehow discover a way to orchestrate long-lasting peace between the state of Palestine and Israel, or if I create the next useless invention like the Snuggie or Chia Pet, my proudest moment in life will be if I can look back and know that I lived my life as well as my dad did. I am my father's son. That will never change. So, thank you all for being here, and thank you for helping me remember this great man.
Linda, do you have a special message for us?
Rick's mother, Lois, couldn't be here. She lives in Old Mexico and does not believe in flying north in the wintertime. She says, birds don't fly north in the winter, so why should octogenarians? So I am reading her letter for her. Few students expected a car in 1944 when I graduated from high school. In 1965, when Rick graduated, he didn't get a car either. He got a job. Hard work, good pay. His dad got him a job on the track gang at Kennecott's open pit copper mine in Bingham Canyon, Utah, and offered this advice. Work 1 year, save your money, and you'll have enough to buy a car. It was particularly hard work at first, but Rick developed his muscles swinging the spike maul that held the railroad tracks to the wooden ties. He worked his year and bought his car. You can say it made a man of him. I say it made the gentle, caring man you all knew. In the course of that year, he got to know and appreciate his gangmates. In many ways, they were dependent on each other, and Rick felt that kinship. Some of them were foreign-born, could barely speak English, but they loved to relate stories about their birthland, brag or complain about their children, and share the strange foods they brought in their lunch buckets. Many were naturalized Mexicans who lived in the canyons on the road to the mine. Their children made money by selling the pretty turquoise and rust-colored rocks they picked up on the slopes. Their wives put tortillas and beans in their lunch buckets. In the winter in the mine, around a roaring bonfire, or in the hot summer at the bottom of the pit in the shade of the equipment shack, they talked together because they knew they had to work together. Rick learned that well. It is hard to have my child die before me, but I am gratified he led a good, honorable life. A mother's love will never die.
Carla?
Did you see that sunrise this morning over the Bighorn Basin that Rick Dunne loved? Do you see this building, the museum, the Washakie Museum that Rick also loved? We're here tonight because we loved Rick Dunne. My name is Carla Bird, and my husband Frank and I moved here about 6 years ago. We met Claire Dunne and then Rick in 2010. Very soon after we met, we became good friends, and as my husband Frank explains, Rick never in the following 4+ years of our friendship presented anything but an open-minded acceptance of his condition, fighting his cancer with the good humor and intellect we came to admire and respect. What an intelligent, interesting, engaged, and lucky man Rick was. Lucky to have met Claire, who is just as intelligent, interested, engaged in our community and in the larger world around us. And Rick was fortunate to have been able to hold off that bad cancer long enough to see his children grown. Frank and I feel favored to have shared these last years with Rick. With other friends, we might talk about Western politics, about hunting. We might drink beer and play cards, all of which are good in their own way. With Rick in the room, we would discuss geopolitics and world ecosystems, and Frank and I would learn from Rick and from Claire about world art and world history. We would discuss global economics. I think after Deke and Cody left, we were adopted. We would talk about the landforms and plate tectonics that form our world and how the cobbles, the very rocks on our place off West River Road, were originally produced in Idaho and eroded down into our yard before the Rockies were even born. The discussion was not even limited to this earth, as we talked about the beginnings and the extent of the very universe itself. I'm retired now, but when I came to New Orleans, I was at the end of my 30+ years with the Bureau of Land Management, where I managed rangelands and habitat restoration, and I found that Rick had followed Claire and gone into production of native seeds. They grew sagebrush and four-winged saltbush and red penstemon on their farm. How cool is that, to know that the deer and the antelope are playing on the rangelands that they helped restore. On all of this, us in this room know what a talented speaker Rick Dunne was, and a few of us were lucky enough to know him in the Sweet Talkers Toastmasters Club. There happened to be very good speakers in the Sweet Talkers Toastmasters Club, and Rick added positively to our mix. We were able to listen as Rick polished his new speeches in fine form. His stories were captivating, his delivery superlative, as his voice and gestures brought drama and life to his words. His caring evaluation of club members helped the rest of us build our skills. His humor was evident as he provided little statues as awards. The plastic Moses action figure was given to the person who had the wisest words of the meeting. And we cowered and tried not to get the other action figure, which was given to the one in the room that needed to work harder. His gentle and caring nudging with just enough poke helped us all become better speakers. I will celebrate with you the life of Rick Dunne. He was a unique and marvelous man. I will never again hear the word Visigoth or consider the reuniting of Gondwana land without thinking of him. And of course, as Frank and I continue our friendship with Claire, we'll have time and opportunity to remember Rick and his gifts of intellect, curiosity, and caring for a long, long time.
Doreen.
Hello to you all, especially to Claire and Cody and Deke and family, as well as friends. I think that events like these cause us to look to great minds for appropriate things to say, so I went to Abraham Lincoln. And he said, "Die when I may. I want it said by those who knew me best, that I always plucked a thistle and planted a flower where I thought a flower would grow." And he also said, "In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years." And at times like these, I believe that we're faced with and must ask ourselves some of life's very important questions, the kind of questions Rick would have asked. When cheese gets its picture taken, what does it say? When someone says to you, "A penny for your thoughts," and you give them your 2 cents worth, where does the other penny go? And if it's true that we're here to help others, then what exactly are the others here for? These are the difficult questions. And there are no certain answers for the serious questions, so on most days I just deal with the things that we're sure about. Here's a fact. Every day more money is printed for monopoly than the US Treasury. And I find it pleasant to remind people that you should always remember that you're unique, just like everyone else. Rick actually was unique. I asked Claire what Rick's favorite color was. She said plaid. Actually, that was Claire's sense of humor responding. The next text said, "Dunno, anything but pink. Blue is always good." I'd like to mention 2 things about that. You'll notice I'm not wearing what I was going to wear. My extremely nice, most becoming pink cerise pants, blouse, and jacket. And the second is you notice that the first words of hers were, "Dunno." Now, doesn't that bother you? Notice how they always push their name at you. They say things like, "Well, when all is said and done, I'm done with that." Done, 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 done. So I'm going to be honest. There are a few things about Claire and Rick that made my life very difficult. I'm certain many of you must feel the same way that I do, and now that we, his closest and most intimate friends, are here, I think it's an appropriate time to share. Let's say I'm out with people. Thank you for not laughing, that wasn't a joke. So it's Friday night and I'm out with people, and I say, "I'm sorry, I have to go." And they say, "No, it's too early." And I say, "No, really, I'm sorry, I have to go. I have to go home and study." And they say, "Study?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm going to Rick and Claire's tomorrow night and I have to go home and study." And I have to ask you, who here has not studied so that they could converse with them at the dinner table? The problem was, if I studied economics, Rick wanted to talk about geology. If I studied geology, Rick wanted to talk about fossils. If I studied fossils, he wanted to talk about politics. If I studied politics, he'd talk about minerals. If I studied about minerals, he would talk about agriculture. But I had an advantage over everyone in this room. I am an actor. And I could act as if I knew what he and Claire were talking about. But they could never get me in my own fields, the theater, film, and television. Of course, it was helpful that they never watched television. That they don't have a television. I would have not had to study if they had been considerate enough to let me know what they were going to talk about. So I think it's good, as we remember Rick, to remember him as he really was. He was funny. He was hardworking. He was talented. Who of us does not remember his one line in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers? Brilliant interpretation, there are no words. He was strong of will. He was loving as a husband, a father, and certainly I know as a friend and a member of the community. He was a man of integrity, and he was too fucking smart by half. And because he seemed unconcerned about religion and an afterlife, I've chosen a quote from Virginia Woolf. She said, "I have sometimes dreamt that when the day of judgment dawns, and the great conquerors and lawyers and statesmen come to receive their rewards, their crowns, their laurels, their names carved indelibly upon imperishable marble, the Almighty will turn to Peter and will say, not without a certain envy, when he sees us coming with our books under our arms, 'Look, these need no reward. We have nothing to give them here. They have loved reading.'" So you see, one of the important questions has been answered with certainty. Now we all know where Rick is and what he's doing. And there is a French proverb, "Gratitude is the heart's memory." Or in the original, "Gratitude is the heart's memory." It's so much deeper in the original, I think. For Rick, I am thankful. For Rick, and for my beloved Claire, and for dear Deke and sweet Cody, who will each remain with us until they too go to look for a better reading room. I am more than very thankful. I am, in fact, eternally grateful. Thank you.
Kathy?
Hello. Well, I was wondering why Claire said only speak for a minute, but I can see why. This is a huge group of people who must absolutely love Rick, as anyone that I know that has really been touched by him. When I look at Rick and Claire, I see the best love story that I've ever seen in my life. And I've gotten to see it for about 20 years. And I saw them working together every day, doing incredible trips. I remember Cody had taken his ACT or SAT test, and he said, I was really wondering about this one question, and then I remembered, oh yes, I've been in France, and I saw the Louvre, that picture, and I knew what the answer was. And that's what Rick and Claire had done for their boys, is they gave them the idea and the ability to really actually have hands-on things. So I'm going to leave you with a hands-on story about Rick teaching me how to, and again, I think he's a very gentle man, he taught me how to have chickens and a dog and parakeets all in the same area. And what he did, and I was absolutely, again, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, where we don't have animals in our backyard, let alone anywhere else. But so he said, well, if your dog, which my dog had eaten a chicken, he said, you just tie the chicken around the dog's neck for a week, and he will never do that again. I was horrified. Okay, whatever, Rick's brilliant, I'm going to do it his way. And again, for the rest of our story right now, my dog does not eat my chickens. So that's what Rick taught me. He's done a lot of, I've been talking about a lot of things. Thank you, Rick, I have chickens. If anybody needs eggs, I've got them.
Thank you all very much. I would like now to offer this mic to anyone that would like to add their story to those that you've heard.
Waste no time.
Ed?
I've been chomping at the bit. You guys are good, hard act to follow. Rick and I are cousins. Our mothers are sisters, and he's 9 years my senior. So I have the earliest memories of all of you of Rick. favorites is he taught me how to throw water balloons with a vengeance at him. But I'm of the opinion that the spirit transcends into the future with our memories and our deeds done. And it's kind of cool being in here because you are the group of common memories. And regarding deeds done, this building, or particularly the room over there, this is for at least the moment, Mich's house of glory. It's cool being here. However, many of you, I'm sure, are well aware that some weeks past, Rick was at the pearly gates. St. Peter's condemned him to eternity looking at Barney reruns. Now, how could that possibly be? And I am convinced that those memories and deeds done by Rick could be both good and bad. He was a little democratic. What else he did to get on St. Peter's bad side. And I've known him long enough that I think I know the answer, but I think that's a better conversation for the ball or the late evening or something. I would just like to say thanks to Rick for all your spiritual lessons. And by the way, how's Barney treating you?
Thank you. Would anyone else like to?
Thank you. I'm Sara Freud-Haley, and this is sort of impromptu because I did not discuss this with the board, but I feel it would be a huge mistake to not recognize Rick's commitment to this museum at a time that was difficult and tumultuous. Building this building was a huge job, and it took the museum from a small local place, which was wonderful, and many people worked very hard on it, but it took it to a first-class place, as you can see. And it was a tough time, and one of the things that no one has talked about is Rick's passion. And he was incredibly passionate about this place. And many times in our meetings, it wasn't all flowers and roses, guys. And there were disagreements, and there were avenues that we went off and couldn't go or didn't have the money for. And the one thing that's so amazing about Rick is he was very passionate, but he was always, always kind and generous and respectful of everyone. And he worked very hard for this to be a reality, and I am thrilled that he got to be here and see what it's become both culturally for this community as well as intellectually for not only this community but anyone who happens to find us. So we do owe him a huge debt, and the museum is very grateful for his presence and his leadership and his kindness and his patience, which he had a lot of. The final thing I would like to say about Rick was something I just heard the other day, and it's not in regards to the museum. I was talking to someone who was in the service industry, and I'm understanding this woman probably did not go to college. And what she said about Rick I thought was so touching, because she said, Rick is really, really smart. And I said, yes, I know. And she said, but he's one of the few smart people I know that never, ever, ever made me feel stupid. He was always kind.
Anyone else? I saw some other people stand up.
I'm going to talk, but I'm not going to come up here. I'm Kevin Tonkovich, and I work at the high school. I have possibly a funny story to tell about Rick's parenting techniques. And Deke, if you'll help me tell the story, to refresh my memory. It seemed like we were at the end of the school year, possibly an important school year, like the senior year. And Deke was a paintballer, and the national paintballing championship was taking place somewhere, and you wanted to go to it, and he let you. And you missed my final exam, I probably gave you an F. But I appreciate him for letting his children make their own decisions. Also, a couple of things you don't know about Rick. I believe he was a blackjack dealer in Las Vegas.
St. Peter's, right there.
Oh, okay. And, the other thing that I think is a little known fact is that he was a state champion debater in the state of Utah. Was that college level or high school level?
High school. High school.
And whenever I needed people to help out, I'm looking at all of the people that I periodically used to call on the phone. Yeah, you're nodding your head. You won't be getting that call from me this year. But Rick was always gracious about helping judge. He had a vast knowledge of cross-examination debate, which is an event that can get really silly. We were just talking about that. And Rick was known and feared and respected on his ballot, which I think is a good thing for high school kids to get through their heads. Thank you.
Well, I'll just talk from here. I'm Joe Kelly, and as some of you may or may not know, we used to have a little shoe store downtown. And one day I was having lunch with Claire. I don't think you remember this. This is back in the 80s. I think you arrived here in the 80s, is that not correct?
84.
84. It was in 84, maybe 83 even. Anyway, I'm having lunch in a little place called the Health Nut Hut. And I'm having lunch there, and this couple comes in with, I don't remember the guy's name, maybe you can help me, the wheat pest guy back then.
Paul Case.
Paul, yes. Comes in with Paul, and they sit down, and they're having lunch, and so I go over and chat it up a little bit, and he introduces me to Claire. Claire had this long, black, hippie kind of hair. Rick was, Rick was Rick. Anyway, I said, so what do you guys do? Well, we're thinking about coming here, and we're going to do a seed farm. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. And as I was walking back to my chair, I said to myself, that'll never work. So I don't do business plans anymore.
Can I stand back here too? Can you hear me? I guess after he spoke, I thought I remember the young couple that I think my husband and I are kind of responsible for those people being here. We had our farm for sale down in Anderson, and we had it on the market for a year, and it didn't sell. So we thought, we took it off the market and said, we'll just remodel and keep it. Our kids have grown up, and one day the doorbell rings. And this gal with the long black hair, this couple was standing at our door. And I said, hi, and they said, hi, I don't believe you've been married too long. We came from Salt Lake and said, is your farm for sale? Anything's for sale, and that struck a friendship, and I have to think that Dave and I were pretty apprehensive about the sagebrush seed. They bought the farm, and the rest is history.
Thank you. One thing that we all know is that everyone in here could have 5 or 6 stories about Rick, and we want to hear them all, but at dinner time. It is now my pleasure to introduce Celia Davis.
I'll tell them about pieces. I'm going to buy 2 pieces by Bob, but Bob wrote these pieces about Rick. That's how it works. The Allemande, well, the both pieces are from the First English Suite. I guess that's a kind of a fact Rick wouldn't want to know, but the Allemande is about Rick in that it is so very complicated, with so many threads going through it. And you could follow any of those threads through it and almost get lost, but they do all connect. And it kind of reminds me in a way of a conversation with Rick Dunne, only a conversation with Rick Dunne always made my head hurt. This piece does not make my head hurt. But it is kind of like Rick and all of its complexity, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss something pretty wonderful happening in music. The parade has got Rick's sense of humor all over it. It really is. So Bob wrote this music for Rick.
so many inspirational stories. I started this ceremony of Rick's life, letting you know that he did have a spiritual life. Though he did not, it was not in the forefront of his life. The last few years that I've spent with him has been about that. He was a very spiritual man, and he had just one request for me at the end of this ceremony. And that ceremony will not end until we extinguish the chalice, and I would like to call on his son Cody for that honor. Go in peace.